Good evening, council. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending our town council meeting this evening, Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. I'm going to do roll call. Kat Perry.
Here.
David Harwood.
Here.
Melissa Pickett.
Here.
Doug Matheson. Here. Pete Greeny. Here. Everybody's in attendance. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? By the way, there were no kids here tonight. Normally we have children here, so I'm filling in, okay? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, approval of minutes, May 13th, 2025, regular and closed sessions, and May 27th, 2025, budget work session meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, Kat?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
And Pete?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved. Regular agenda adoption. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the regular agenda? Okay. Kat?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Doug? Aye. Pete? Okay.
Aye.
Regular agenda is approved. Consent agenda. Blowing Rock ABC store travel policy, fireworks permit, Blowing Rock Country Club, police weapons surplus, and utility write-off resolution. Do I have a motion to approve the consent?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Who seconded? Pete? Okay. And of course, there's no discussion for consent agenda, so we will vote. Kat?
Aye.
David? Aye. Melissa?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda is approved. Okay, now, under the public comment section, you can speak for 3 minutes on anything that's not on the public hearing agenda. If you want to speak on the Bennett property, parking enforcement, or our budget for 2025-26, you'll need to wait till that section, okay? So if you have, see the names, Hillary? Okay, okay. All righty. Gigi Poole.
Thank you.
You're always at the top of the list, Gigi.
Thank you.
If you would, just state name and address, please.
I'm Gigi Poole. I live at 147 Dogwood Lane. And I wanted to talk tonight about workforce housing. I was first introduced to this concept at the planning retreat, January 31st, when Mr. Fox said that the average price for a home sale in Blowing Rock in December was $1.3 million. And then he asked Councilman Harwood to do some drawings for potential 4 duplexes that could be on the land across from Food Line, that at $400 to $500 per square feet would be $760,000 each, or over $6 million for the town of Blowing Rock to spend initially to house potentially 8 employees or 8 families and their employees. And so I just decided to do some digging on my own, and I have found on Zillow, here are 45 properties that since January 31st are on the market, have been on the market, are apartments or single family homes within 10 minutes of Blowing Rock that don't approach anything like $1.3 million. They're $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. I also asked a realtor to tell me what the average sales in Blowing Rock for a 12 to 2,100 square foot dwelling, which is what I think Mr. Harwood had sort of sketched out. And from January 1st to the middle of April, it's more like 793,000. And I know that the reason this was important was to get it before the legislature, and you gave Mr. Fox permission so the town could go ahead with that. I know it didn't happen. It didn't do the crossover. It didn't make it. But I have attended since then the planning board meetings as well as the subcommittee meeting on workforce housing. And the focus of the staff of the town of Blowing Rock has been and continues to be giving incentives to developers. And I think there are more important or just as important issues that need to be considered with workforce housing. Number one, monitoring. We don't have a zoning department. We don't have staff that if these incentives were given and it was suggested that you go up from 5 units per acre to 7 or 8 or 9 units per acre, then the cat is out of the bag. If you don't have the capacity to monitor it, to have enforcement, what are our powers as a town to enforce that? And the other thing, which only one member in the subcommittee mentioned at that meeting I attended, was demand. What is the demand for this particular type of housing? I think all of those need to be considered, not just giving incentive to developers. But the most important thing I think is, and you as elected officials know what your job is, and that is to steward. You are a steward for the revenues that come into the town of Blowing Rock. You are a steward for the infrastructure that we already have. You are a steward to protect what is Blowing Rock. And I believe the staff should be on that same page. So that's what I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gigi. All righty. Okay. We do have special recognition. I guess we need Chief Nathan Kirk. Nathan, are you still in the house?
All right. So I would like to call Officer Walton in. Stay right up here. So Officer Walton came to us and we hired him. He's been through field training for the past 3 months. He was officially sworn on February 6th. And I would just like to bring some special recognition to him because he's been a standout officer. I've been very proud of these guys. Officer Walton has had a total of 1,923 CAD entries during field training. That total is 702 extra patrols that he's done, checking properties, checking different things around town. He's conducted 258 traffic stops, 127 foot patrols. As soon as I got him in a uniform and a badge on his chest, he ended up jumping in with a community engagement forum that we held with Boone PD and the Watauga County Sheriff's Office. Jumped right in, gave good information. He's SFST certified now, and with him and Officer Mitchell, they represent over a dozen arrests. This is just between field training, and combined between them, that's felony drugs, warrants, and DWI. So with that being said, our tradition is to present them with a Bible. I would like to thank Samaritan's Purse for providing these. This is a special blue line Bible that they have. They had to special order these. So I'm happy that they were able to do that. We're gonna pin him now, and Lieutenant Hunt will do the honors.
I, Jeffrey Dillon Walton,
I, Jeffrey Dillon Walton,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the state of North Carolina,
of the state of North Carolina,
and the town of Blowing Rock,
and the town of Blowing Rock,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of office
the duties of office
of police officer
of police officer
to which I have been entrusted
to which I have been entrusted
without fear or favor,
without fear or favor,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. Now I'd like to call Officer Mitchell in. Officer Mitchell got a little jump on Officer Walton because I ended up hiring him back last summer for parking enforcement. So he got known around town pretty quickly, putting yellow parking citations on everybody's cars. But Officer Mitchell has had over 1,394 total CAD entries, 566 extra patrols. Traffic stops are 166, foot patrols 136. Officer Mitchell also assisted with the emergency fest that we do every year. That's a combination of every law enforcement agency in the county. That was over at the high school. He also assisted with the kindergarten through second grade civic day that we do for the school every year. And then he also was a vital, just because of his background, building the gym in the PD, because that is what his background is in. It's physical science. And he is also SFST certified. And just like I said with Officer Walton, they combined over a dozen arrests. So very proud of these guys. And Mitchell's brand new wife, Michaela, is going to come in and pin him. It's not right unless you draw blood.
They just got married.
I, Nathan James Mitchell,
I, Nathan James Mitchell,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the state of North Carolina,
of the state of North Carolina,
and the town of Little Rock,
and the town of Little Rock,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of police officer
of police officer
to which I have been entrusted
to which I have been entrusted
without fear or favor,
without fear or favor.
so help me God.
So help me God.
All right. Now, I'm very pleased to say that unlike many towns, we are fully staffed. That says a hell of a lot. My hat's off to all the supervisors and Shane Fox and our citizens for allowing us to do this and the council for making it happen. So thank you. All right, moving right along. Public hearings. The Bennett property, RZ 2025-01-R15 to HSG. Brian Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. I'm here to present rezoning tonight. Applicant is Zachary and Julie Bennett. This is rezoning request RZ 2025-01. I'll put some pictures up with some maps here in a little bit, just so we can get a little bit more familiar with where this property is and some of the surrounding properties for reference. But Zachary and Julie Bennett requested a rezoning of 2 vacant lots adjacent to the resident. This is located at 1194 Laurel Lane. The request is rezoned from the existing R15 single family to HSG, which is Horse Show Grounds, the proposed zoning. These are lots 5 and 6 and have been part of a previous subdivision called the Creeks at Mayview, which was a 6-lot subdivision. Lot 5 is 0.771 acres and lot 6 is 0.699 acres. The 2 properties in question is actually located on Cone Road. This is the Laurel Lane area. Horseshoe Grounds is located above here, and this is the two properties in question. Mr. Bennett owns both of the properties. This is his residence currently, which encompasses this, and he also owns the two lots here. Property is further identified by Watauga County Pins 2807-58-8719000, which is Lot 5, and Lot 6, which is 2807-58-7991000. In the application, which is in your packet, Mr. and Mrs. Bennett have stated the request for the rezoning is to build a small barn and be able to keep a horse or two on the property. The current zoning does not allow that, which is R15. The HSG Horseshoe Ground zoning would allow horses on the property. The property currently borders the Horseshoe Grounds, which is this border right here. The Horseshoe Grounds also owns across the road, Cone Road, which is on Horseshoe Grounds as well, in Cone Road. And just for reference, this is the town's maintenance shop and building. A little bit of background on the current zoning of R15, which is single family. R15 single family zoning districts intended to be a low density residential district in which single family residences constitute the predominant use. Multifamily dwelling units and mobile homes are typically prohibited in this district. The proposed zoning district, which is proposed to be the Horseshoe Ground zoning district, is designated and designed to accommodate equestrian activities such as horse shows and horse paddocks and those types of things itself. There's a couple tables in your packet referencing the allowed building heights for the Horseshoe Ground zoning district. And it also lists and compares the current building setbacks that's allowed now and the proposed Horseshoe Grounds setbacks, which has no interior setbacks, but they do require a 30-foot setback, which is current requirement for R15. At the May 15, 2025 meeting, the planning board made an unanimous approval to recommend the rezoning of the property from R15 to the Horseshoe Ground zoning. There's some also, further in the packet there, some deciding information for council to consider. Mr. Bennett is with us tonight. If you got any questions of him as well, or if he has a presentation, but I'll entertain any questions for any more clarification. This is the current subdivision plat. There's the 6 lots here. The only one that Mr. Bennett does not own now is lot 2 here, which is currently built on. But the two properties in question is lot 5, lot 6. This property is zoned.
It's R15.
It's R15. This is the parking lot for our maintenance shop and building there. This 0.373 acres is owned by the Horseshoe Grounds. It's also currently zoned R15, but it is owned by the Horseshoe Grounds. Questions? Clarification?
The property the town owns is also still zoned R15, is that correct?
This right here
Is
is
that where the maintenance shed is?
that's the maintenance.
But
That's
it's-
the maintenance shed itself. This is the parking area here,
Okay.
and that's the property in between. This property is owned by the Horseshoe Grounds as well, and I think what you see here is it's just open fields, and it's kind of like paddocks for overflow of horses and things like that for the Horseshoe Grounds. We did send public notice to 15 property owners with a 150-foot radius. So they were all notified. We had no responses from any property owners.
Would they be required to put sewer in?
It would be an option for them.
Okay, but they wouldn't be required.
Just depends on, and one thing with the zoning of the horse show grounds does not allow any type of residential as part of building a barn, so they could not have any type of residential over it or near it there. There is sewer, if I'm not mistaken, there is sewer that runs on the lower side of that property there, currently and on Cove Road there.
What are the fencing requirements in HSG?
Our ordinance does not have any. If this is approved and we go to a zoning permit process, I do know there's some permits. And Mr. Bennett's been working on some things here with the Army Corps of Engineers. And I do know on some of those permits that there was some requirements and conditions that there's certain separation requirements or fencing requirements, maybe correct myself, maybe not fencing requirements, but some issues with the stream there. I think it's kind of common practice now that they, kind of take a little closer look to livestock and things like that near streams. So that it's not an ordinance requirement with us, but that's something that Mr. Bennett would have to cross with the Army Corps of Engineers if it becomes a project there.
So if this were to get rezoned, the remaining R15 would be an island in the middle of HSG, is that right?
This one would.
Yeah. Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this,
I'm sorry.
this works then with everything that the horse show has with their properties, it fills in with it.
It's compatible with the adjacent zoning districts, obviously, except for the horse show grounds owns this. Obviously, it is zoned R15. I don't know what their use of the property is, if they even use it. Zach might can enlighten us on that. But as far as I know, this is the only border here in this part up here. This it is Zach's house there. And given a 30-foot setback, which would come off of Coden Road here, and the stream is located somewhere in this area right here, I think it's the only logical place to put a barn or a structure is probably in this corner here. Mr. Bennett would have the option to probably recombine these at some point if he needed to. If there was interior setbacks, we would require that. He'd have to meet those setbacks, but since there's not any required setbacks in horse show grounds, and that's not an issue. But he could combine those if he ever needed to.
I attended the May 15th meeting of the planning board, and I recall that there was a discussion of riding the horse from your property to the show ground. I'd like to have that amplified and rediscussed.
Come on up.
For the record, if you would state your name and address, sir.
My name is Zach Bennett. I live at 1194 Laurel Lane, where I was just showing y'all. For reference, we bought this property several years ago. We've worked with state and federal agencies, remediating the creeks, getting everything back natural again in it. There were where the creek runs, like he was saying, goes up through here. It actually comes out from under where the maintenance shed is and the parking lot, then goes down. That is the headwaters of New Year's Creek. So obviously it was very important to get that back flowing again. There was just decades and decades of trash, debris, trees, name it, throughout it. we've spent a considerable amount of time and money on that. Obviously, with this having been subdivided before, that was previous to us. These neighbors were actually at the last meeting as well and were in favor of it and spoke in favor of it. So we really didn't want to see the rest of this get developed. We didn't want other houses to end up on there, whatnot. Eventually, rezoning that to the horse show grounds prevents that. So it'll essentially turn into green space in perpetuity, which was our goal, along with being tied in with the horse show. We sit on the board of the horse show. We're very involved with that. In terms of riding the horses from it, there is a path right here that we can come directly from our property up and onto the horse show grounds. We can also cross right there onto the horse show grounds. This property that the charity horse show bought several years ago they're not doing anything with it right now. So anyhow, but yeah, either of those ways would allow us onto that property. And then obviously where Laurel Lane is right now, there's a current cut through over onto the Cone Trails from that. So that has been utilized for decades and decades by the horse show. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Now, this hearing is open for the public. If you would like to come up and speak on this particular hearing, come up, state your name and your address. Okay. Any other questions for staff?
Brian, do you know if there are any HSG properties that are owned other than the Blowing Rock Charity Horse Show entity?
We do not.
Do you know when the HSG was established?
That might be a Kevin question. That may be before his time.
It was before. I would say the original zoning in '84. I'll know for sure.
As far as we know, that the subdivision this subdivision that's here, my understanding is for R15 as well. I've just got to say about it. There's a conditional use permit on that property for the subdivision.
So show me again the properties that he borders that are R15 and not horse show owned.
There's three. His personal residence here, lot 4. His house sits here. This is the horse show grounds as well. That's the 0.373 acres, R15. And this that the town owns, R15 as well.
So that's about it. Okay.
Across the road here is HSG. There is a permitted use table within your packet there to compare the uses. Approval of a rezoning, you approve it based on all the allowed uses within that zone. Currently, we do not have anything that regulates with a rezoning application that regulates the number of horses that can be on that property. I'd have to let Zach answer his thoughts on that. Like I said, I don't think we have any fencing requirements for that. I would imagine that's something Zach would do. That's a question for him.
So I'm trying to understand what can happen on HSG property. And I've read through the table of uses, and there's stables in them. I didn't see anything about shows, even though so is that a special use permit when we have a horse show?
No.
Then how do we have a show on property that's not, does not have that as a permitted use?
I guess it's because it's been done for hundreds of years.
125.
Maybe it's grandfather.
102 to be exact.
That's a good question.
Grandfather.
If it was before zoning.
End use prior to zoning ordinance has been consistent.
Is that in our code, grandfather?
Not performing it.
It's
I
a
mean, I'm
similar-
not trying to be argumentative, but it's a temporary use, a non-conforming use.
It's typical of any other property that we bring into the town through out of ETJ. I mean, you accept a non-conforming use on property a lot of times, or situations.
So that would be very similar to Canyons, Green Park, the Blowing
Those are
Rock.
every day. I'm talking about a 2-week event. I mean, I'm not trying to get off subject here with the rezoning, but I am trying to understand what could or could not happen
Sure.
on HSG property.
I think the change from R15 to horse show grounds, the HSG, it does eliminate a lot of uses. But, some that is allowed could be a little bit more intense uses, those type of issues. There's a lot of legislation going through relating to downzone at this point. But Mr. Bennett's consenting to this, so it's really not an issue with that. But it is somewhat eliminating a lot of uses there.
So is it an accurate statement to say that the HSG is inherently a public-oriented, how can I put this? A public event-oriented use?
No, I mean, I think the show relating to that one property is, but I mean, HSG could apply to any property. So I don't think it's just specific to the public, even though it is a public event. Now, could that happen on Zach's property? To what extent? Yeah, but I don't know, what his thoughts on, being involved in a horse show.
I don't think 1.47 acres will support a horse show.
Would that follow the same guidelines as maybe other areas where they have a livestock zoning? We're using HSG. But
No.
what do other places?
There's different use categories for livestock and animals and different things. I mean, this specific horse show grounds is related to, I think, horse-related activities. I'd venture to say that cows are not allowed to horses.
The horse show grounds, specific language of the zoning district, the HSG district is designed to accommodate equestrian activities such as horse shows. That's just the description of the zoning district.
Very detailed, isn't it?
And with horse shows, it's only
Less is more. Come on, Dave.
I guess the show is kind of, I guess the way that's stated is an example of what can go on amongst other activities.
I think the activities are pretty limited, actually. I mean, if you look at the table of uses. Horse riding, stables, and apparently shows are grandfathered.
The other broad uses that's allowed there is telecommunication towers and those types of things, which is,
Yeah.
they're allowed in R15 anyway, maybe a couple exceptions, but they're generally allowed in R15 anyway.
Tower is allowed in everything with the zoning permit.
not towers.
Oh, boy. Council,
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
we have a motion to close public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, public hearing is closed. Any further discussion amongst council? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'm going to make a motion to deny this request. And here's what I'm thinking with my motion is that kind of where the rubber meets the road is what the charge for the town council is. So if you look in section 16-23, it's really clear that we can't make this decision based on whether the change would help or hurt the private owner of this property. We really got to make this decision based on how the change would affect the whole community and not take into account Mr. and Mrs. Bennett's advantages or disadvantages in this. And in my opinion, the private use of this is inconsistent with public-oriented use of HSG. So I'm going to make a motion to deny the application or the petition based on those reasons.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to deny. Do we have a second? Okay, we don't have a second, so the motion fails. Do we have another motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the applicant's request.
Okay, we have a motion to approve now. Do we have a second for the motion to approve?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second motion for approval. Any further discussion? Okay, Kat?
Aye.
David?
No.
Melissa?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
Okay, so it is approved, and thank you so very much for coming out. Thank you, council, for your thoughts and feedback. All right, moving right along, parking enforcement, ordinance update, passport parking 2025-05. Chief Nathan Kirk.
Hang on a second, let me get this. Okay.
Council, write down your tag numbers, okay?
All right, we're good.
Council, if I may, I'll start by just introducing the topic. Last month, we discussed parking enforcement, and prior to that, we discussed at the retreat with results from Meredith McLaurin and the study that we had approved back in the fall of 2024. From Meredith's study, there was some recommendations that she made with regards to parking enforcement. Number one being consistent parking enforcement, which is something we've not necessarily been over the past number of years. Number two, some suggested changes to the hours, the limits of parking itself from 3 to 2, primarily on-street parking. And then further, another suggestion to make Maple Street parking lot an enforceable parking lot. Currently, it is not, which means we do not have hour limits there. On top of that, there were suggestions made by Meredith within her study to increase our fines and go to a license plate reading system that would allow for us to check the enforcement and compliance of the parking along with the administrative functions versus what we've been doing, which is a manual function. So Chief Kirk is here and Cassandra Reed tonight to present some of the results from the study and recommendations along with an update on a possible vendor. And then, of course, it is a public hearing to allow for the public to speak. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Kirk.
Yeah. Can I steal that as well? So going over the ordinance and stuff, so this is my staff report attached with that ordinance. And it's going over what just Shane, just reiterate what he said, based on the direction of the council at the May meeting. This would change the ordinance and would modify the current 3-hour parking on on-street parking that I listed right over here on this one, from 3-hour down to 2-hour, exception for the Maple Street lot. That will be making that a 3-hour monitored parking lot. And it also increases the fines for parking violations and failure to pay. And the changes to the fines, I didn't put that up on this PowerPoint, but just to hash that over for you. So first time offense is gonna go from 10 to 20. Second offense, if this is for overtime, 15 to 30. Third and subsequent is 20 to 60. 2 spaces, wrong direction, improper, no parking, parked in street, loading zone, parked on the sidewalk, and other are still remaining the same. The other change will be failure to pay within 30 days will go from 25 to 30. And then there's no other changes on there to what our current code is, what it reads right now. So I'm gonna step over here on this side, because there's a lot of information. I talked last council meeting about Passport and what they can provide to us as a town for their service and everything. This other company approached me the day after the council meeting, and me and Sandra sat down with them, and they really have a good program, something that Passport tries to mimic. So, and I'll go into that. But just to highlight this, our on-street parking and the 2-hour parking, so we've got a total of 253 spaces there. And that's 56 of those spaces are gonna be the 3-hour parking on Maple Street lot. And then our public off-the-street parking, which is the Legion deck, upper and lower, American Legion out parking in front, Royal Park and Pool, DeMont Field East and the DeMont Field West. West is right there in front of DeMont Field. And then Annie Camp Gardens or the Glen Burnie Trailhead, that's that parking lot, and then the Brom deck. So we've got 280 spots that are still gonna be free, not monitored, anything like that. And then 253 that will be monitored. And if you guys would like to, I've also got the walking distances from each of these lots. So like I said, the group that approached us afterwards is called T2 Systems, and it's an international company. This is the North America company. It's called Up Safety Parking Enforcement Solution. And Nate Wagner is the sales manager that we've been dealing with primarily through this whole process. So they're an international company. These are some of the towns that they work with currently in North Carolina, and that's the city of Goldsboro, Greenville, Lincolnton, New Bern. They also work with a private company called Midway Parking, and then they work for the airport at Piedmont Tribe. This is the 2 different systems that we can look at. I've got numbers on everything towards the end of the presentation. The system here on the right is the system that we are looking at. Because I told Nate to build me a Cadillac version of what they have to mirror what Passport is offering us. And this is what they came up with. So this is an all-in-one. This is a smart device. I think it's a Samsung S23 that's built into this device right here. On top is your printer. So the citations will print out on the back. It also has, it's called hot swappable batteries. So instead of plugging it up and charging like the Zebra Passport option is, you can swap these batteries out at any time. It doesn't slow up enforcement. They can go right back out into it. Something that the officer will see on that screen with that device, they go up, they can scan the tag, and it shows up with the different things that they have here. So it would be iChalk, it would be the program that we'd be using. And I'll go into further detail on that as well. But everything is dealt with on this phone. And it also coordinates with our back door software and things like that. So as soon as they scan it, it's automatically uploaded immediately. Also on those handhelds, when they scan that tag, it can show up right here to see, what overdue tickets they have, what unpaid tickets they have, how many warning tickets they've been wrote. It's a really cool system. And then we can tailor hot list. If there's something, if there's a tag that we're looking for, something like that, and they scan it, it'll pop up on this system and tell us about that. And it's completely customizable, everything from the handheld device to the software that we have on the back door. I mean, it's really cool. This right here is going to be the primary function of this system. It's called iChalk. So when they go through, the park enforcement officer goes through, this is what they're doing. They're gonna pick the same tire on every vehicle. They're gonna scan it. They can take a picture of the tire, and it's chalking it based off of the valve stem position. So no more chalk, anything like that. They're going through, boop, 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 scanning, hitting it with the tag and everything like that. And it shows the location, it shows the tag, everything. So if a citation is written, this is what it'll look like. This will print out here. They customize this the way we want it. It'll be our logo up here, the Town of Rolling Rock seal. The citation details right here, what they got wrote for, a picture of their tag. And also on this software, you can take a picture of the vehicle up to 15 pictures, I think. That should never be needed, 15 pictures for anything like that for a parking citation. But it lists all your details out right here, and then it gives you the options to pay down here. They have a system where you can pay by phone call in. They handle all of that. Nothing with the PD or anything, Cassandra's staff or anything having to deal with that. They can pay online at a website, and they can scan a QR code if they want to do that. I'll let me go back real quick. And then, as far as the patron goes, or whoever the citation has been wrote for, they can go in there and make a payment, they can review the citation, and there's also a section in there where they can dispute it. If there's something where, I was parked in this line, the line wasn't clear, or something like that, they can flag it, and then Cassandra can see that immediately. So this is getting into the software portion that Cassandra will be running. So when we pull it up on the computer, this is what it's going to show. This is all customizable in the way we want it. So this will show the Rolling Rock City map. It'll have a breakdown of the tickets and what's being issued overtime or no parking, parking on the sidewalk, blocking street, different things like that. It also shows us up here how many tickets are overdue, haven't been paid. It gives us all kinds of charts and different charts and everything else that we can go through to break down this data and see what we need to do. Another thing is that this right here, it tracks. It's GPS trackable to show where our parking enforcement's going all through the town, how long they've been there, how much tickets are being wrote on that specific street. It's really cool. And I tried to table this down because originally this was 56 pages long. So I tried to pick the hot spots and things that would apply directly to us. Also on here, so if we go past 30 days and they haven't paid their citation yet, this right here is what they will get in the mail. So it's a breakdown, it shows the pictures, it shows the amount that's due right now. Passport charges $1.75 for this, and that's a bill to the town. T2 Systems charges the violator for this. So the town is not out any money for these illegal notices or anything like that. And they can do it, it's automatically set up in a 90-day rotation. First one goes out 30 days, and then the call system that they also have in this, we'll call them if we have a phone number and say, hey, your citation's overdue, you need to make this payment, you can make this payment right now. And then it waits another 30 days, and then automatically does it again, and then the 90 days. So, and we can tailor that exactly how we want it. This is part of the patron portal. So this is something, if you're looking at it on a tablet, it's just a scaled down version if you're looking on a mobile device. It shows you the picture of the back of your car, the other pictures associated with the citation, what you owe, where to pay. It takes all major credit card, debit cards. There's a call center if they have any help that goes directly to them. It's a North American-based group that's going to pick up the phone. Every night, if the citation is paid, it automatically gets directly deposited through ACH to the town. There's reconciliation reports. It goes to Tasha's office. It's fantastic. They've thought of everything really that I can see. So this is where we're going to get into the hard numbers here. So I've listed every number they've got, and the way that T2 Systems does it is they price it out in 3 years. So this is based off of 2 devices, 2 LTE plans, which Passport does not include in their system. So if you look in here, this is the hardware care program. So I told them the price for 2 different devices that we can have on hand. That right there, that cost will cover if an officer's out there, it's snowing, it's raining, they drop it, it gets waterlogged, broken, they send one immediately overnight to replace it. A loaner one will use the loaner until they replace with a new system, with the new one that comes in. So there's no interruption in any type of enforcement action. And then down here, they have a discounted rate through Verizon, which is $420 per year for each device. Now, this is something that can be changed as well. They also gave us the option of using Wi-Fi, and the town has Wi-Fi all down Main Street and down Sunset as well. So that's an option, a cost that we could save on. I didn't include that in there, but just to let everybody know that is an option that we can remove that and use Wi-Fi in the town as provided. And then there's your licensing fees right there. This is all based off of 2 different devices. And then the delinquent notices, like I said, they charge $1, but that goes to the violator instead of Passport charging the town $1.75 every time they send one out. And this is just a continuation here. They also have an option right here for out-of-state lookup. And they do in-state lookup as well, but that's another cost that can be adjusted. I think the in-state, I don't think they, let's see, what do they charge there? I don't think they charge anything on the in-state. Out-of-state, they only charge if it's successful, but this can also be eliminated if we want to do that. Because we have communications in-house, we don't necessarily need it, it's just more work on Cassandra's team. But that is a cost-saving thing. So let's see right here. This is the devices themselves and training and things like that they provide. The training goes through everything to Cassandra running the program and to the parking enforcement officer as well, how to use the devices, and that can be accessed at any time. The support is 24/7, 7 days a week. Anytime if something happens, we can call them. Here's our devices right here. It's S23. That's the all-in-one. And then the paper that comes is $169 per case. So 50 rolls, that's 3,000 citations in one case. That's a lot, and that's more than what Passport has. And that paper is waterproof. You don't have to worry about anything. Stick it on there, you can sew on it, you can still read it perfectly fine. So this is a comparison right here. We've got Passport on the right, we've got T2 Systems on the left. So the first year is when we're buying equipment, and that's why that's significantly higher right there compared to the second and third year. Passport, I listed all the fees, and this is what the town has to come up with. So delinquent citations that get paid, they take a 20% top off of that. Delinquent notices sent out is $1.75. That's the hardware cost per device for the Zebra printer all-in-one that they have. Citation paper is $150. I think you get 2,600 citations out of that. Merchant processing is 2.95% plus 25 cents, and that's assessed to the town, not the violator. T2 Systems has that incorporated to where the violator is paying that. The gateway, that's anytime you access it. So that's a nickel every time it's going in. So that would add up quickly. So year one total is $14,600 for Passport, and that excludes the data plan per device. So I'm basing it off of the price that T2 Systems gave us for Verizon, which would be $840. Total price of $15,440. That's just year one. So then after year one, it's $12,000 for the software every single year. That's $1,000 more. So with T2 Systems, we're paying an extra $120 to get this, and then it's significantly cheaper the years after that because it's a set price. There is nothing Passport, so we'd be saving money with the T2 Systems. I think that'd be the way to go if we're going to move forward with this. And that's it.
All right, I do have a question.
What you got?
And I just asked Shane for, this is not in the budget for this year, correct?
Correct.
Okay, but it would be in the budget for next year.
We did not include it in the budget, given the timing. What we would ask to do is an amendment, and we could do that at the summer retreat. If that, we're not going to be able to make much headway between now and the next 2 weeks. That'd be something that we would bring to you at the summer retreat, would be an amendment to be able to purchase the necessary equipment.
Okay. So I guess essentially, council, you all consider the options of the 3 to 2 hour parking, the designated areas that are 2 to 3 hour or 3 hour, those that are unlimited, et cetera, et cetera. And then of course, I guess you're looking for approval for the, for them to go ahead and order the equipment to move forward, to Am I correct? Is that what we're looking for?
Correct.
And we need to
It changed the fines.
change the fines as well.
Can the public speak?
Yes, they will. Yes, they will.
Okay, not yet, though.
No, not yet.
Okay.
We circle back to the expenses. Conversely, you don't have the revenues. in the
Correct.
budget either.
That is correct. You know, we in the past have not budgeted for any potential revenues, given the fact of just the inconsistency in the past with that. So we do not have revenues or expenses. What we potentially could do, and Ms. Brown and I can discuss, bringing to you all an amendment that would include a portion of revenue as well to offset expenses.
Thank you.
And I do want to mention something else to council as well. I also looked at signage to see what it would be to replace the signage across town, because that is something that we would have to do, because everything right now reads 8 to 7 p.m. and it's 3-hour parking. So signage, I just pulled up the first website that it came to. It's the exact same signs that we have out there right now, except it would say 2-hour parking and the time frame would be different, except for Maple Street. 40 signs, we could get 40 signs for $1,000 and they ship within 24 hours.
What's different about Maple Street?
That's gonna be 3-hour parking instead of 2-hour parking.
I missed that.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
as sporadic as the cell service is down Main Street, is there a backup of still doing it the old-fashioned way when somebody's illegal? I mean, you may have service right in front of Brass Exchange and then go another 100 feet and you don't have another.
So there would be a delay there, but the benefit of having, if we did a cell plan or if we did the town Wi-Fi, it automatically uploads to the software in-house. The other delay would be you can completely operate this offline, but it won't upload until that parking enforcement officer gets back to the PD and their device connects to the Wi-Fi and it starts uploading.
Okay, we are open for public hearing, public comments. If you would like to step up to the podium, please step up, raise your hand. Ms. Miller, would you like to come up? If you would, state your name, address for the record, please, and your employer.
Robin Miller, my home address or the business? 132 Park Avenue, business, Blowing Rock, Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Town Council, for allowing me to speak this evening on the parking. How exciting is that opportunity to automate the parking? I think we all look forward to seeing that. I am speaking today on behalf of the business community. I did put my sneakers on this afternoon and went out and spoke to several businesses, ran out of time and sent a quick email out to about 145 of your businesses just along Main Street and Sunset. The chamber is here, I would say, not to take an official position on parking overall, but to voice the concerns of the business community on Sunset and Main, that right now they are struggling businesses. They've been financially impacted due to the storm and recovery out of the storm. We did a great ribbon cutting that Blowing Rock is open. So that was one of the prevalent points of feedback that I had is, please don't change our duration right now. The sentiment is that take this step into consistent enforcement and then implement great technology. And then when you get the great technology, you have the capability of dynamic duration and dynamic pricing. You can do that dependent upon holidays, hours of the day, all of that. In my experience, as we know, parking is a challenge everywhere, and especially in small towns where we're all rubbing elbow to elbow. But these businesses are speaking loud and clear. They do want an opportunity to have a bit more time too, to provide more collaborative input on what does enforcement look like? What does parking look like in the decks versus the streets? I am new, of course. I don't know if that collaboration has been intense, but the chamber is here to offer up myself and the organization to bring people together and consolidate that input. So today, our ask is that Yes, we should approve, an advancement in our parking technology and ability for enforcement. But we do ask the council please to delay the implementation of reducing the 3 hours to 2 hours until we get our grips around our enforcement and the technology implemented. I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Do we have someone else that would like to come up and speak? Okay. Council, more thoughts, ideas? Pete?
I would echo what Robin said. I've already had a number of emails talking about the 3 hour to 2 hour. So I think we have to be sensitive about that. In terms of the technology, I think that's a good step, but I would caution us about changing the hourly rate just yet until we have a chance to really look at it.
So it's my understanding that the 2 hours, someone correct me, the 2 hours, the intention there is to rotate these spots more frequently. And if you're going to be here longer than 2 hours, then you need to go to one of the 280, I was paying attention, non-metered, not metered, but non-timed parking spaces. What I don't think we have thought about is how do we get that message out there?
Right.
So someone, to Robin's point, to phone calls I got, was that 2 hours, does it really allow for a dinner or a lunch and shopping and so forth? And I would be okay with that as long as people knew where they could go. And I feel like there's a misstep there on our part, potentially. So I'm wondering what the strategy was, if any, to direct those people from a 2 hour spot to a more than 2 hour spot. Was that going to be signage, or have we not really considered that?
So signage, yes, but to what extent signage? So wayfinding signage is coming, pedestrian signage is coming, but it's not here yet. We obviously had a delay with that, and that's going to that's directional signage, parking, et cetera. To the detail of what language was on those signs, that was not something that we had considered putting into this proposal. It was going to be location dependent. If you're on Main Street, you'd have your signage there. If you're off, then that signage is included as well. So Devant Field, Braun parking, we would order additional signage there that would give the instructions as coming in. That, if that's
As far as digitally goes, this company can provide that. They can tailor us a map and show you where 2 hour parking is, 3 hour parking is, free parking, public parking, and tailor that to a digital form to where we can put that on our website, we can put that social media, they can build it completely the way we want it. So that could be a help with that.
I think David's defense, or reinforce his comment, that's fine and good. But you get a lot of people that come into town, they pull up and they see a parking space, they're going to stop there. We do get a lot of older people that are challenged and that, want to park close to wherever, okay? So I think that, you've got a good point, David, that they're not directed to where free parking is right now. Yeah.
I don't think we've really talked about a plan for doing that.
I would add the comment that our enforcement has always been in the areas in which we're currently discussing. So we are not changing enforcement from one area to another. So from an area standpoint, new to town, you don't necessarily have the same benefit, but we aren't changing. On-street parking has always been enforced here. It's been enforced in a multitude of different ways, from at one point 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we've tightened that up a little bit, and we've changed our hours from seasonal to non-seasonal, et cetera. So The signage and the enforcement piece has been exactly in these locations, outside of Maple Street. Maple Street is the one exception that was the recommendation. The parking decks, American Legion, Roy Hill, Devant, those have always been and will remain exactly how they have been with no enforcement piece of that. We could always put additional signage. We want to be mindful that our current plan with wayfinding signage that's coming doesn't add too much as well. So we're open to all suggestions within that, but just want to make the point for the record, if nothing else, we aren't necessarily changing our enforcement areas. We're just changing the structure of our enforcement outside of Maple Street.
We're not, well, first of all, Mr. Mayor, I think we need to close public if we're going to keep discussing. We haven't closed the public hearing yet.
We can, yeah, we can close it. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have somebody else want to come up and speak. So if we don't have any other public that would like to speak, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
In reference to Mr. Fox's comment, I do agree that we are not changing our enforcement area, but in the past, our enforcement has not been cohesive.
Correct.
And I think that has led, I mean, you could get a ticket and, I mean, it's a known fact, you can get a ticket and not pay, but nothing's really, we have no means to enforce that portion of it. So I think that's part of it that, yeah, you can get, I mean, it was known you could go out and erase the chalk mark off your tire and start all over. That's been done in the past. So I think that's where part of that is coming in. I don't think, sorry, Nathan. That was before you. It was, you know, things of that nature. I don't think it's the fact of the enforcement area. I think it's just that in the past, it's been kind of a wishy-washy thing. And that I think I would prefer to see us do strategic baby steps where we are we're going with, this is what we're doing, we're standing the ground and we're making strides. So we're not making huge steps that we have to backtrack and start over. I would much rather see that, do that, so we're accomplishing goals along the way.
Would you
Just
like
my
to-
2 cents.
Would you like to make a motion?
I can.
Detail it, well, also Melissa,
No.
detail it, because you have to address the times. What do you say?
Yes,
I'm
Mr.
just asking
Matheson,
for a
you can make
motion.
a comment before I make a motion.
Thank you. Enforcement, is the biggest thing for me is seeing coming, because I'd like to see, there's a lot of things that, I'm seeing a lot of delivery trucks parked on the crosswalks, blocking crosswalks now. I'd like to see a lot of the enforcement get started. One of the things also that I'd like to see us consider in this is, it's something kind of like Asheville did at one time, is I'd like to see us designate somewhere on Main Street a loading zone. And I'd like to see one on Sunset. And what they did, it was a loading zone to 11 o'clock, and then it reverted back to parking. Just an idea tossing out there is that, let's get these delivery trucks if we can. And most of them do seem to come before 11. Let's get them out of the middle of the street and get them over somewhere that they can park, and makes it a little safer for them also. So, just a comment. Now, thank you, Councilwoman Pickett.
Okay.
Now that I have no
Thank you, Doug.
permission.
All right, so essentially, what needs to be in your motion is increasing or not increasing fees, purchasing of the monitoring equipment, 3 to 2 hour parking or keep it the same, and keep current parking areas as they are stated now. In other words, not changing anything or changing something, adding Maple or not, or whatever. So there you go.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that the fines are increased, that we do purchase the, software and equipment, that we leave the hours as they are, the parking hours at 3, where they are, Maple Street at nothing. And do we need the one for the areas? Because we're not changing any areas.
We would need for time. So current time is listed at 8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Oh,
Our
that-
suggestion is 9 to 5 with Sunday 1 to 5.
I'm good with the changing the times also.
Okay, to what?
The, of course, the 9 to 5 and 1 to 5 on Sunday.
Okay. You got that, Hillary?
Did I cover everything, Hillary?
So you wanna leave it at 3 hours, and then what was the times?
It was
Nine.
9 to 5 Monday through Friday and 1 to 5 on Sunday.
Okay, got it.
Okay, that covered it all?
Monday through Saturday.
And Saturday.
Monday through Saturday, sorry.
That cover it?
Did I get all of it, Shay?
Yes, so no changes to anything. So the only changes that you're making are the hours, 9 to 5, Monday through Saturday, Sunday 1 to 5. And the only other change you're suggesting is changing the fees from 10 to 20, 15 to 30, and 20 to 60.
Correct.
Failure to pay 25 to 30. Those are the only changes.
Correct.
Everything else stays
Yes.
as current ordinance.
Correct.
Is that covered? Chief?
And purchase.
Did we include the Maple lot in it?
Leave it same.
No,
Leave it in?
Maples?
Leave it
Maples
out.
stays the same. Yeah. Okay.
So the only changes are to the hours and the amounts.
yes,
and then Okay.
purchasing what he needs for.
Now, if this motion gets tabled, we're gonna have trouble. No. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? David, you got that look on your face.
Yeah, I don't know.
No? Okay. All right, no further discussion.
Oh, I
go
did
ahead.
have a question. Is this system, will it do a variable duration?
They can tailor it exactly how we want it. So if we want to pick a specific lot, 3 hours, we'll do on street, certain hours, it can be tailored exactly the way that we want.
So,
So I could go in and I could take a picture of Charlie's tag on the back of his corner.
I pay all my parking tickets.
Put that on the hit list and say, he's VIP, do not write this citation. We could do that. I mean, it can be tailored exactly the way we want it.
No.
that was
Or
a
charge
terrible,
him.
that was a terrible.
Charge me more.
That was being done now, didn't it?
Oh, boy. Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Kat?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Doug?
All right.
Pete?
Aye.
Okay. Sandra, Chief, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, right along. 2025, 2026 budget presentation. Mr. Fox.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I'm pulling up a PowerPoint here. Let me get it started. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to present some highlights of the budget. This will be our third technical presentation of the budget. The first was at the May 13th meeting, in which at the end of that meeting, the budget was made public, not only to you, but to the public itself, posted on the website. Copies have been made available here. Then again, 2 weeks later, on the 24th, I guess is what they're, 27th of May at our budget workshop here in this room that was held from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. and then tonight, which is our public hearing. So I have eliminated a few slides, so it's not as long. So some of you have seen this, others may have not. So just bear with me. I will go through this relatively quickly, but again, be glad to answer any questions. We'll talk about the general fund highlights. That is the largest of our two funds, general fund and enterprise fund, which is our water and sewer. We'll go by types, taxes, fees, etc. And then we'll break down the expenditures, capital outlay, our general fund debt, and then we'll go into the water fund and then what our next steps are. If you recall, we broke down the general fund between our operating capital, personnel and benefits, and our debt, those kind of four pieces within that. The overall total general fund highlights are pretty vanilla this year. I think we've discussed that multiple times. We're not proposing any property tax increases. We're utilizing fund balance, and we've got a slide to talk about exactly how much fund balance we're proposing to utilize. Diversification is the name. Our revenues within the town are very diversified, and we'll talk a little bit about why. Sales tax and TDA revenue continues to be steady for the town. Overall, we proposed a 2.5% COLA. Two things that are out of our control somewhat: 6% increase in our state retirement, that is our state pension plan, and a 5% proposed increase in our health insurance. Debt payment is flat, but overall total debt is going down currently. And then we are proposing continuation of our capital plan, which is our fleet schedule that we put together a couple years ago. So diving into the general funds, you'll see a pie chart here, breakdown of what makes up our major contributors to our revenues. These are by types, property taxes being the largest at 45%, sales tax at 23%. Our TDA makes up 15%, and then we've got a few others there with state collected, POW bill, and franchise tax, sales and services, primarily planning, zoning, and park and rec fees. Transfers and interest are exactly that, transfers to the water fund or transfer from the water fund for services provided. That is our administrative services, administratively covering the water fund, the work that we do. Interest is interest earned on our idle cash, and then other is primarily our proceeds from debt. So that makes up our types of revenues. Our overall income or revenue continues to be very diversified within the town. You'll see a snapshot here of the last 5 years. 5 years ago, our property taxes made up roughly 50% of our budget. Today, that's 45%. Our TDA and sales tax combined was 33%. Now that's almost 39%. Again, why we discussed this at length during the workshop, and we discussed it this year, is tourism. That is the number one piece contributing to our economy. Unlike a lot of places like Lenore and Hickory, we do not have an industry. We do not have a large conglomerate of any sorts that's providing output. Our industry has always been, for 125 years plus, has been tourism. And as you see here within the numbers, you can continue to see our overall general fund revenues continue to be very diversified. Jumping into property taxes, this is the property tax base since 2022. You see our base in 2026 at 1.747 billion. That has been relatively steady. We typically see a 2 to 3% increase each year. That's natural growth, new buildings, permits, et cetera, within the town. The one hiccup here you see behind me is the large increase that took place because of the revalve in 2022 that took effect in 2023. That was a 35% increase overall on average to the town property. How does that 35% compare to others that we've seen since then? We do have a 2027 revalve coming up, so we're about 2 years away from that. What we've seen off the mountain and up the mountain since 2022, 2023, which we saw the 35% increase, is much larger percentages. Again, the kind of setting the stage that we do expect, unless we see some major downturn in the economy, that these numbers will continue to rise, which means our 2027 revalve will be larger than what we've had in the past potentially there. Our property tax rate has been relatively steady the last 5 years, 40% proposed last year, or passed last year, 40% proposed this year, 39 a couple years ago. We were 43 before the revalve and dropped to 37. Overall, our property tax rate continues to be very competitive with our neighbors, Boone, at 39 cents. I will add they have proposed a 1 cent increase, so my theory of them always being 1 cent less than us may be debunked this year. They are proposed at 40 cents, which would tie us. Banner Elk 46, Hickory 46, Wilkesboro 48, North Wilkesboro 52, and North 58, Beech Mountain 65 cents. Overall, when you combine that, what we call the effective tax rate, if you live in the town of Blowing Rock like I do and all of you do, you pay not only county taxes, but our city taxes or town taxes as well. That's 72 cents. Boone will be 72 cents if everything holds true. You see their comparisons all the way down to Lenore. Again, these are geographical, regional neighbors and what you're paying in those areas. Again, the goal here, no one likes to pay property taxes. Truly, no one does. However, the point is to make sure that we're staying relative with the information that we're providing to you all with where we are and how we compare to our neighbors. The value of the penny of that 1.747 at 40 cents is $178,000, which means for every penny we add or take off the tax rate this year, based on our value, is worth $178,000. You see that has increased from 165 to 172. When I started here, that value was about 120,000. So you see a nice steady increase. We did see 3.7% growth this year. Again, that does match up with what we're seeing on the building and planning, zoning, permitting side as well. Jumping into sales tax revenue. Overall sales tax projections based on the budget number is up or proposed at 10%. If you recall during the workshop we talked about, we are ahead of 10% overall actual year to date. So even though we're proposing 10% up over last year budget, our actuals that we are soon to be realizing are exceeding the 10%. So again, we are somewhat proposing a flat to actual proposal. Same with the TDA in just a few moments. Not knowing what the economy is going to do, not necessarily knowing how strong we're going to bounce back, seeing indications of what we're seeing, we decided to be very conservative and leave it at an actual rate, which in theory is a 10% increase, if that makes any sense, at $3.6 million. We do seem to be trending better than others. That's a Watauga County difference. If you go to Avery and you go further south, you'll see much different numbers there. Our TDA revenue continues to be strong. 2.4 million is our budgeted number. Again, not getting too technical, but if you recall, that 2.4 million is the gross up number. The 1.8 is actually the number that we recognize. The 600,000 difference is what comes to the town. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. Overall, our projection is flat. We will approach this number this year. We're going to be potentially slightly less than that. We just received April's numbers and they were slightly up. And again, we were expecting that. At the TDA meeting, Mr. Drini sits on that board, and I think a couple of you were there. We did hear some very positive news, we hope, of some projections that may be coming up later this summer for potential travel. We do know, as we look at the state and the work that's going in post-Helene, there's been a tremendous amount of money, $9 million to be exact, that's been put into advertising. So what we're seeing and what we're starting to project, and this was from Mr. Brown, our TDA director, is we're starting to see some of those bookings that are starting to happen later down the road, whether that's July, August, September, October timeframe. Again, what we're projecting is a flat year here, very similar to what our flat year or projection is on the sales tax from a flatness standpoint. Our TDA share of the 600,000, again, that piece was only 346,000 just 5 years ago. So everyone that was here post-COVID saw that almost doubling overnight effect that took place as we were fortunate to open back up the gates, so to speak, and tourists flocked to the area. We've not necessarily seen a decline in that. A bullet point just a few moments ago was that our TDA was on a record pace until Helene hit, and I think most of you know that as we share our financials with you each month where we are. Again, so we're knowing these things as we're projecting. As tourism goes, we go. That's what I was mentioning earlier. That's been the case for 125 years. As tourism has gone the last number of years, it's afforded us a number of things. What our third or our 600,000 pays for within the budget is half of our 321 landscaping, our park attendance, Christmas decorations, street lights, sidewalks, parking deck. They paid a portion of our new bathrooms, they paid half of our new playground, and they're paying a portion of our new park, and the list goes on and on. That $600,000 is a major contributor to our budget, and we're very appreciative of the work that the TDA has done to get us to this point. Again, that is our economy here within the town. $600,000 of TDA revenue represents 3.4 cents on our tax rate. Watauga County is ninth in the state for property tax savings. What that represents is each taxpayer in this town saves on average, based on North Carolina tourism numbers, $649 a year on their tax rate if tourism did not exist within the town. To Watauga County, visitor spending last year, based on North Carolina tourism numbers, $518 million in this county, which would be about $35 million in sales tax to the county, or $10 million to Watauga County. Overall, $35 million, with the $25 million going to the state within that. So a major contributor overall as it drives our economy. Our general fund fees, again, similar to our budget, not a lot of proposed changes here. One change on the planning and zoning side was review of our final construction plans from 200 to 500. That was an overlooked piece that, if you recall, last year we revamped our planning and zoning fees to be in line with Boone and Watauga and Lenoir and others. This piece was missed within that. That's just that final construction plan review from 200 to 500. No other planning and zoning fees are proposed. Our recycling is through Republics. The proposed changes from $10 bi-monthly or $5 a month to $12 or $6 a month, again, is being passed along from Republics to us, and we're passing that along to the citizens, which is something that we've done for a number of years. No park and rec fee changes, no cemetery fee changes, and no other fee changes are proposed within the general fund. Any questions so far on the revenues before I get into the expenditures? going fast, but I know a lot of this has been repeated, and I don't necessarily want to hold everyone up. How does the town spend $1? This is something that we've put up for a number of years. Public safety is number one. It's always going to be number one in every town and pretty much every county. That is our police and our fire function here. Central government, which makes up, again, a very odd category for us because it is a gross up category for sales tax, TDA. Also includes IT, also includes our audit fees, and includes our attorney fees, et cetera. And we'll go in a little more detail with what those are. Make up 29%. Don't know why that popped up third. General fund's 11%. Street and sanitation is 14%. So sorry for my technical error here. I'll just go back one more. Our park and rec 7%, landscaping 6%, and planning and zoning coming in last year at the caboose at 3%. So overall, public safety the largest at 30%, and will continue to be the largest at 30%. Central government 29, streets and sanitation 14, general 11, park and rec 7, landscaping 6. Planning and zoning at 3%. How does that break out by type? Between operating at 38%, salaries at 30%, our benefits make up 18%, our debt service 11% of our overall budget, and our capital outlay 3%. This is by type, similar to what we looked at with the revenues, property taxes, TDA, et cetera. This is how we break out our expenditure by type. All right, so getting in a little bit more detail with our operating trends. Overall operating expenditures are up $277,000 from prior year. However, the majority of that are made up within just a couple of areas. Our sales tax expenditures. We receive gross sales tax from Watauga County. We then reimburse or rebate back a percentage of that. That number is up. That's an expense within the books and how we record across the state of North Carolina. Our legal audit and IT expenses overall are up $73,000. As we joked in May, Mr. Petrick's firm and cost is a little bit higher than what we had paid back in the 1980s, which is what we were still paying the prior firm. Yeah. Very competitive market rate. Our overall audit fees are up this year based on a couple of things. One, we're very pleased with audit firm, but overall, we have a new number of grants with Lean and FEMA being the primary driver of that. We will be a single audit. We will be in the $1 million plus category with just our FEMA reimbursements, which does require additional work, which requires additional cost from the auditors. IT continues to go up, but is a much needed expense, whether it's working through our new endeavors with our cloud-based technology, whether that's our cybersecurity, whether that's our ongoing training, that cost continues to go up. Those two combined make up about $225,000 of that $277,000. Capital outlay continues to be a consistent number that we try and strive to be able to present to you all. We did have a little hiccup in 2023 as we caught up from the COVID years with some police cars and things that had not been delivered. However, we're always looking to keep our capital outlay in the general fund in the $400,000 to $500,000 range. Within your budget in the back, you do have a copy of the fleet schedule that does show what we are projecting for replacement in each one of our departments, from the police department all the way through street sanitation, landscaping, park and rec. It's not set in stone, but it gives us a good guideline to try to keep our expectations steady year to year without having these large dips within our budget. Again, our annual budget is something, as you saw earlier, 1 cent on the tax rate only makes up $178,000. $178,000 can be consumed pretty quickly in capital outlay if we're not careful. So we're trying to keep that number consistent. What is in capital outlay? Needs for 25, 26. The other half of our finance software, this is something that is probably 15 or 20 years in the making. We're halfway through it. Ms. Brown has been working diligently with our software provider. We've got the other half coming up this fiscal year, and then we will be through and we'll be back to pay in our annual cost with a new software system. Again, this is probably a 15 or 20 year in the making endeavor that we've been needing to take. One police vehicle, again, while one, we typically do two. Unfortunately, we've had some bad luck with cars and accidents and deer and insurance claims. We're able to take the monies from some of these older cars and purchase a car in this fiscal year. So that has been done here at the end of the year, which is going to replace that second one for next year. We are planning, if you look at the fleet schedule, going back to 2 next year and thereafter. On the street side, a new chipper truck, dump truck, and snow plows with cameras being added to each one of the vehicles. We have cameras within our police cars, we have cameras within our fire trucks. This does add cameras to our public works vehicles as well, but does have GPS technology, does have the ability for us to go back and retrieve data on it, whether that's being able to track where our trucks are or whether that's being able to prove from an insurance purpose standpoint of accidents, et cetera. That does add those cameras to it. And then on the landscape side, 2 minis for one is a fancy way to put it. We do have 2 mini trucks that we utilize for watering. We're taking the 2 older ones and we're getting a newer one, and then we're taking a golf cart and replacing it with a gator. We just have found the need, not that having the need for 2 mini trucks as much as we do for a 1 mini truck and a gator for some of the work that takes place there. Questions so far? I know I'm moving fast.
Does the capital equipment, is that a rolling 10-year projection? Do you add every year, or do you do it every 5 years?
So it's every year. The fleet schedule goes out, give or take 10 years is kind of our goal within that. We revisit it every single year. One thing that we've been able to accomplish with our fleet mechanic is variations within our vehicles. So for instance, a trash truck that may be up this year, we may move to next year or 2 years down the road. So the goal is to make sure that we have a loose plan, so to speak, on paper, but we're also sitting down during the budget process with each department head and our fleet mechanic and getting a feel for where we are with each one of our vehicles.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Employee salaries and benefits. Overall employee salary and benefits does include a 2.5% COLA, and it does include retirement and health insurance increases as mentioned earlier. The retirement plan in North Carolina that is provided to each one of our employees through the state retirement plan provides 6% contribution for each employee. However, the employer part varies, and that employer part is based on actuary studies, not only on our current retirees and how many we have in the system, but where we are within the number of years current employees as well. So as our tenure increases, then our overall contribution percentage is going to increase. That number now is almost 22% for each one of those employees. And again, that's a mandatory thing as a part of the retirement system. Health insurance is still up in the air. Our current system, our current provider, changed this year for the first time in a long time from Blue Cross over to Aetna. That is through the state retirement or state health insurance plan. This is our first year. That is a calendar year, January 1st to 12/31. There will be changes to that system. They are proposing to go to a salary-based structure. What we put in this budget is a 5% increase because that is what we've kind of been told that we think will average out. But we will not know those numbers until August. So there's a very good chance we'll have to bring to you all either one, some changes to the budget if it's negative, or potentially as the summer goes on, we are going to propose looking at options and potentially bringing you other options for health insurance. Health insurance continues to be one of those things that just continues to rise each year. So we're always looking not only to provide good coverage to our employees, but also obviously making sure that we're doing so very cost effectively. Overall, total salaries and benefits is $7.491 million. We do not have and not proposing any new full-time positions in the budget. We are proposing a 2.5% COLA. I will add that Boone and Watauga are doing 5%. Our insurance is projected up at 5%.
Boone and Watauga are doing what?
5% COLA. Okay. Insurance up 5% projected. Retirement is up 6% on top of last year's number. That's that 22%. That is state mandated. As we looked at some of the other options with the revenues, wanted to get into some comparisons of what we have here. We are proposing continuation of all of our benefits. We do provide medical, dental, and vision at very little cost to the employees. Medical is $25 to $50, depending on what plan. Dental and vision is less than that per month, again, depending on which plan you choose. And we are continuing to provide life insurance at no cost to the employees. That's based on salary. Continuation of our 5% 401k. I put here match. That is not a match that's required. We do contribute 5% regardless. We do encourage our employees to contribute, and over 50% of them do. The 5% is what we contribute to them regardless of what their match is. We do have continuation within the budget of our civic time. That is not a monetary thing. However, that is something that we do realize if we have positions that we have to fill or backfill based on the schedule. That is 16 hours. That's something we enacted a few years ago, and we encourage our employees to take part in civic activity 2 full days a year, whether that's be through school, church, nonprofits, etc. We do encourage that. And we do have a number of employees, more than half, that take advantage of that. Overall, Christmas party is something we want to continue as we think it provides great fellowship within our overall structure and our creed here within the town with our culture. And our Blowing Rock Academy is still included in here. We are offering that to our employees at a major discount at $400 per month. Those numbers of children have risen from 7 to approximately 12 now, with potentially more on the way as well. Here is a breakdown again, is what we saw just a few minutes ago with our general fund expenditure by type. Our operating costs are our largest overall individual percentage at 38. However, if you take salaries and benefits, which is a singular category, it makes up 48%. Questions were asked during the workshop, and we went through some of these in detail, because 48% of your budget is a lot. However, how does that compare to others? Compared to the general fund percentage, Blowing Rock is at 48%, North Wilkesboro at 51%, Boone's at 57%, Hickory at 60%, and Lenore at 74%. Again, trying to utilize some of our neighboring partners here. And what percentage of the general fund does salaries and benefits make up? So for us, it's a little bit less than half. For others, it's substantially more than half. Lenore is 74% of their total general fund budget is salaries and benefits. Want to go a little bit step further, because again, questions sometimes get asked how we compare in other areas. We do not stack up overly well with our competition here with some of our major positions, most notably these our department heads. However, that's where I would stress the importance of making sure that we keep an eye on this, but also continuation of our benefits, continuation of the academy and the culture that we've had here. Because again, as the mayor pointed out, we are fully staffed. Folks are here for a reason. Just wanted to point out that, as others have alluded to in past budgets, et cetera, we are not necessarily overpaying our employees. Sometimes when you look at this, we are not as competitive as what we maybe want to be.
And we can ask Shane.
Yes, sir.
When you look at fire chief, police chief, public works, amongst, and of course, all the others, whether it be Boone, Blowing Rock, Lenore, or Hickory, all these people have to come on board with the same qualifications as any other city. Is that not correct?
Absolutely. Most every one of these positions have a requirement within the positions themselves. That being said, we have some of the most, if not the most qualified and experienced people that you'll find within any of these cities, or Western North Carolina for that matter, within each one of these positions. Yes, sir. Moving on to debt service, and how do we stack up with our current general fund debt service? Overall, debt service in the general fund is approximately $9 million and $8.9 million. Wanted to point out here a couple years in the past, a couple years in the future, to show this nice trend here. We do know that we have some projects and things coming up. We'll talk about that in a few moments. This is as it stands now with what's been approved within the general fund. 8.9 million is where we are currently. We are projecting that total debt to be 7.47 million as we stand currently. Something to make note of, 75% of that number is GO bond debt, which the public voted on in 2014. Actually 2013, I guess, is when that was, at a over 70% approval rate, if I recall correctly. So 8.955 million in the general fund. What does that mean annually? 1.75 million. You don't see as much of a decline last year to this year. Again, these are very consistent debt payments. One of the things that we try to do on the capital outlay, like with the fleet schedule, is we do a rolling stock loan. So as we roll off a loan for usually 3 years, sometimes it can be 5. But typically it's a 3-year loan for the fleet schedules. We roll another one on, and that tries to keep that payment plan consistent, so to speak. One thing that I mentioned during the workshop with debt within a town that sometimes gets a little bit misconstrued is that we should have debt. That is not something that we want to be in a business of being debt-free like we would be personally. One of the goals for us, obviously personally, is to pay off our debt before we die and make sure that we're debt-free. As a town, the town's going to be here forever. Our goal is to smooth out the debt, smooth out those payments, so we're not seeing large increases and variations within the needs there, most notably property taxes. So what we see next year is the rolling off of several pieces of debt. Overall, our trend is continuing downwards. Our installment debt roll-off is a small piece of that. Next year is our big year from a roll-off standpoint. We've talked about this for a few years with the Buxton property at $200,000, the fire station at over $235,000. And then we do have a couple small debt and installment debt pieces around $500,000. So as it stands right now, we are projecting next year to see a pretty significant roll off within the debt. However, we know we're going to be bringing to you all at least one new debt loan proposal with the park and land purchases coming up within the next couple months as well. And we'll talk about that in just a few moments. Our bonds and where we stand currently with our bonds, we issued those in 2013, 2014 is when we started paying on them. Most of those start rolling off in 2036. That's the point I was making earlier. That's a long ways down the road. None of us will probably be here in 2036. What our goal is to smooth out and potentially look at another bond issuance, whether that's in 2026 or 2027. The timing doesn't necessarily matter as much as it's making sure that we're able to capitalize on the needs and utilize either a bond package or a long-term debt package that smooths out that piece, typically over 20 years, if that makes any sense. Question again, yes, sir. Sorry.
I didn't interrupt you.
No, you didn't. Please, I'll take a drink of water while you're on it.
I thought you were going to questions. So the GO bonds, just to help my memory, 14 million approved,
Yes, sir.
but we only used 12?
We will end up using all of it as we currently stand. What we did not do was contribute to, or did not enact the full 10 cent on the tax rate. So what was proposed and sold in 2013, 2014 was the $14 million in bonds at a proposed 10 cent tax increase. Because of the way that we, again, smoothed out this process, so to speak, we're able to capitalize and really take advantage of lower interest rates, which is the number one thing. We're also able to earn back significant interest during some of the idle time that we had some of the bond cash being invested as projects took a little bit longer to come to reality. We are somewhere between 7-8 cent of that 10 cent realized, probably more on the 7 cent side. Again, that's a little bit of a difficult number to come up with. 10 cent was not what we ended up realizing. That's the number I think you're referring to.
Thank you.
One question that comes up and that was talked about a little bit at the workshop is, are we looking at, do we have too much debt on the debt service side? There's a number of ways to look at this, and I wanted to point this out again for you all and for the public. If you look at your audit, there is a number in there that's called a legal debt margin. That is the legal limit of how much money we can borrow. This is on the general fund side. You saw a few minutes ago that number was around $9 million. Based on our appraised value, which is what the state and what the overall LGC looks like, we potentially could borrow up to $133 million. We're never going to do that. I will say this, I spent 15 years auditing around the state. There was places that came close to their legal number. That's a real number that's out there in places. We are at 9 million out of what we legally could borrow up to 133 million. Is that ever going to happen? No. The LGC and the Debt Council at the State Treasurer's Office is never going to let that happen. Years ago, there was some things that took place. That's why the Debt Council came into existence about 15 years ago, was because of some entities that had incurred a number of large pieces of debt. What that means is, for instance, next week we have a call, Ms. Brown and I, with the LGC Debt Council to discuss a potential bond or a potential loan, so misspoken there, a potential loan that we've been talking about now for a few months, which would pay for the park project and pay for the land purchases. We passed a reimbursement resolution a couple months ago that will allow us to pay back. Step one is for us to meet on the telephone with them and do a conference call. They're going to ask questions about the audit, ask questions about the budget, ask questions about tonight, the process, that type of thing. Then before we end up getting to the approval process, we will actually have to go in person and speak to them on what we're planning on doing. That process is under this category is too much, is because those individuals, which is the state treasurer, state auditor, and a number of individuals that work through either the local government commission or the treasurer's office, require this process to take place. They review things, outstanding financial audits, experience, that kind of thing. Talked about the town being here forever. Our goal is to keep the debt low or keep the debt smooth so we overall keep our taxes low. We don't want this roller coaster ride within that. Some things we've done since 2019 that help contribute to not only some of the pieces of debt that's up there, but overall the bond is about $10 million plus in streets and sidewalks, $3 million in parks and recreation, $2 million in land plus purchases, and over $10 million in water sewer without Main Street. So you'll see here $25 million worth of work that's been done the last 6 to 7 years because of the bond issuance and other debt issuance we've had within the town. How do we compare from a rating standpoint? We all know what our individual credit rating is. You probably check it every day, make sure you know what your score is. Our rating here is very similar. We are rated by either Moody's, S&P, or Fitch. S&P is the one that I'm using here because it's the one that we hear about the most. Our rating is a AA+. It is the highest that it possibly can be. Here's why. Kind of like your own personal credit rating. Unless you have a whole lot of debt, you sometimes can't get a whole lot of credit rating, right? So if you've got one credit card, you won't have a perfect score because you don't have enough debt. We will never achieve the levels in which it would take to get to a AAA rating. Who's AAA? You can see at the bottom, Charlotte, Raleigh, Greensboro. There's less than 10 in the state that are in that AAA category. These are billion-dollar budgets. We're not in that category. What I will say is the AA plus is the highest we can get for where we are. We're also the highest town credit rating wise under 10,000 in population.
How many are there?
Under 10,000?
Yeah.
Not more than a handful. There's not many at all. Why is that? Either they haven't issued a bond or they have not gone through the thoroughness of getting a credit rating. Something that you recall probably from a few years ago, it is a very strenuous process to go through a credit rating. You have to have a credit rating to go into the bond process. So we did that back in 2013, 2012 and 2013. We have to redo that every 10 years. We just went through that this past 2 years ago and received again a AA plus, which is the highest rating that we could. That allows us not only to go to the bond market without having to go back through that process, but what it does and what you've seen and what you can see within the audit, if you read through the percentages that we have from an interest rate standpoint. You've seen in the past, since you've been on council, 1.2s and 3s and 4s and 2% interest rates. It's because of that AA plus. Government overhaul in North Carolina is very secure. Government with a AA rating, extremely secure. Last slide, I believe, that I have up here is debt as a percentage of appraised value. How do we stack up if we take our property tax value at $1.7 billion? What percentage of that is debt? For us, 0.55. That's not 55%. That is 0.55 or 1%. Hickory's at 45, Nags Head 53, Bald Head 1.3, Beach Mountain 1.9, Cary, Charlotte, and Raleigh. Why are those up there? Those are the ones that have bonds. Those are the ones that have ratings. Some towns have no debt. Some towns have a lot of debt. Some towns have no all water fund debt or no general fund debt. These are the ones that have bonds and general fund ratings is why these are up there. Moving into fund balance, unless you have any questions on debt. We're getting close to the end within here. General fund is balanced. So what we've presented tonight is balance utilizing $194,000 in fund balance versus doing the $178,000 tax increase. Our audit, as of this past year, we added $800,000 to fund balance, and our overall unassigned fund balance, fancy way of saying what percentage of our fund balance is available for expending, was 48%, or about $6.4 million. Another way to look at that is that we had at June 30th of last year, $6.4 million sitting out there in the bank that we could use for things like pandemics or hurricanes or hopefully nothing else that comes up in the next 5 or 10 years. Some things that will make a difference within this year's unassigned fund balance potentially is the land purchase we've had in the park. We're looking at that loan and reimbursement. The timing of that will be key. So we'll be bringing the proposal to you all soon. That's why we have the call next week. And then FEMA. I put here we're still at $300,000. And great news, we've received the majority of that this past week. So we, at this point, are out one payment that's left. That being said, we have still not been able to move forward with Valley View. So put that over here for a few moments. That will happen next year, fiscal year. What's happened this year, everything other than Valley View has been completed, and we've received reimbursement for everything except for one project that we're waiting on. And it's been, what's the term that they use? Obligated so far. So we're waiting on that check. Fingers crossed it's here before June 30th, and that number will go away, so we won't be out any within that. 1% of unassigned fund balance is $130,000. So kind of putting the apples to apples tax 1 cent, fund balance unassigned 1 cent. 170 on the tax side, about 130,000 on the unassigned side. So what we're proposing here, general terms, is about 1.5%-ish of the unassigned fund balance.
So it's about 5 months of emergency money if we look at it that way.
That is correct. Yep. 1 month is 8%. Way back in the day, the LGC said keep 8%. Then people actually kept 8%, and they're like, yeah, I need more than that. So now they look at it really based on peers, comparisons, that kind of thing. We do have a fund balance policy that we have here. What our goal has always been, at least in recent years, is trying to keep that around 50% number, which is about 6% or 6 months worth of expenditures. Luckily, each time we've had a major endeavor, which again, we've had a pandemic and a hurricane, we've been able to bounce back pretty quickly. So knock on wood, we don't have a third anytime soon, but the town does seem to be resilient. Another plug for that diversification, right? Sales tax, TDA, property taxes within that. So overall general fund summary, our revenues are diversified. There is no increase in property taxes being proposed. We do have some of the lowest taxes in West North Carolina from a rate standpoint. Personnel, no FTEs are being proposed, 2.5% COLA. Personnel cost, again, percentage-wise, I think you'll see there comparisons are some of the lowest. Operating costs are steady, capital costs remain steady and predictable. That's our goal. Same with the debt. We've got a downward trend, but we know we've got some stuff coming up with the park and the land purchases. Questions on the general fund? I've got just a few slides on the water and sewer.
I'm going to circle back to what Doug said about 5 months. That's assuming that we kept spending money at the same rate.
That is correct.
You know, so as we've stress tested this, correct me if I'm wrong.
We've
so
definitely
that,
stress tested, yes.
So a COVID or a Hurricane Helene, we don't have to buy that police car maybe.
Correct.
Or put that off for years. So there's ways we could save money. And if we had to, stretch that out beyond 5 months.
Absolutely. That is changing nothing. Changing no revenues change, no expenses change, other than revenues stop completely. That's what that represents. COVID's a great example. March 13th was a Friday. The 14th, we shut everything down. We started making plans, quite honestly, the next week of what potentially could happen. 2 weeks, 3 weeks passes, we start making plans of, one, not buying certain things. That's why you saw the capital change. Number two, we start looking at our essential services, what's needed versus what's not. We never did it here, but a lot of places look to furlough and make some changes, utilize vacation time. There's a lot of things that were done there to that point. Absolutely.
Okay.
We've definitely stress tested. Again, not sure what a third option would be or what our, we have coming up. Again, we hope we don't have anything. So, all right, quickly through the water and sewer side. This is a different look. So general fund has property taxes, water and sewer has rates. That's all they have, right? So we talked about this in the past. The bottom point is the cost to the cost to the cost. The options here for additional revenue are really limited. If we don't have a lot of growth coming into the town, which we do charge impact fees and we charge service connections taps, then our rates are our only driver of our revenues here. We are proposing a 7% increase, which is about $4 an increase monthly total for the water and sewer, or $8 per bill. So why would we propose that? Well, you saw a few slides back. We have put into place over $10 million in water and sewer projects with the USDA loan coming. Main Street, thank goodness, was paid for by state appropriation, but we've done a tremendous amount. By this time next year, we're probably looking at $15 million, give or take, worth of overall water and sewer projects in the last 6 years, including our water meters that were installed. That debt alone is $156,000 per year. USDA debt that's on here coming up in 26, 27, that is right. It's not this year, it's the following fiscal year, is about $240,000. And then overall, what we've seen is increased cost in everything across the board, general fund side or water and sewer side. Water and sewer, most notably, is our chemicals and our materials, whether that's our field ops that are needed because of water line breaks, or whether that's our chemicals to treat our water. Overall, that's why the proposed 7% increase. I will say this 7% increase keeps us flat. We're not proposing utilizing any fund balance or savings within the water and sewer fund. What we're proposing is the 7% increase to keep us afloat and keep our fund positive. We will have to look again unless we have some increase in usage at what that looks like within a couple of years as the USDA loan comes on. We did not want to pass that along all along at the same time. But the water and sewer fund is one of those. We do need more usage. What we've seen with our meters is we've seen less usage. Now, we've seen that stabilize, but I think that's a telltale sign that we were unfortunately charging people for water they weren't necessarily consuming. It was either being lost in leaks or et cetera. What we've seen now is a finite plan of putting those leaks, hopefully, and slowing those down and making our homeowners aware of it quicker. So overall, we've seen that usage slow down quite a bit since the meters have been put into place. Our capital needs are a little bit less there, backhoe truck, and our leak detection system. Mr. Blackburn spoke to you all at the workshop. This is a pilot program that we want to put within one section of town. We have our meters at the taps that will tell us if there's problems going on from that point on. This detection system goes into our main lines and tells us where we think we have problems. The one thing that we still have right now, even with our meters, is that our water plant operators can tell when we have fluctuations within the usage. We may have a break or an issue. What this system's going to do, and again, this is a pilot program, it's about $20,000 we're proposing here, is going to allow us to pick a section of town, install these detection meters or systems, and that will hopefully alarm us when we have water issues or water leaks or usage issues that's there. So again, we want to utilize this plan as a pilot program to see if it's worthwhile. If so, the detection systems, the sensors are about $1,000 a piece. What we're paying for here is this upfront cost along with the pilot program within that. Couple slides here on debt. Overall, $4 million in our water and sewer fund total debt. What that equates to is $644,000 annually. You do see the increase there. We did have some debt roll off in 2025. What rolled on in 25 and 26 is the meters, the $186,000 that we talked about just a few moments ago. That concludes my PowerPoint as quickly as I think I could go, hopefully making sense. Questions?
Okay. Public hearing session is open.
Before, I did not even state my appreciation to the staff and Ms. Brown for all the work they put into this. I know I mentioned it during the workshop. However, Ms. Brown was in Spain during that time. So I would publicly say thank you to the work that was put in here over the countless months, the past fall or past spring or winter and spring to the budget. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Shane. Thank you. Public hearing session is open. If you would like to come up and speak on the proposed budget. Yes.
I'm the only one who can see this button.
No, just come up, Janie, and give your name and your address.
Thank you. Sorry, this is a long meeting. Am I on the mic?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Janie Sellers. Good evening, Council, Mr. Fox, Council, and Ms. Clerk. My address is 412 Wonderland Drive, Blowing Rock. And in addition to being a Blowing Rock homeowner, I serve as the Vice Chair of the Blowing Rock Civic Association. For the past 10 years, the Civic Association has sought to be an information source and an advocate for our town's homeowners. Thank you for the opportunity to offer a few comments on the budget. And I have been to the other sessions. I think I watched one on YouTube, but I was here in person for the workshop, and I saw the budget message that came out end of last week. It was all very helpful. First of all of us who pay property tax in Blowing Rock are pleased that the budget does not include a property tax increase. Thank you. It worked out well that the 6.2% increase in the expense budget was able to be covered with increased property tax dollars flowing from the 3.5% of additions to tax base, $60 million that were added since last year, plus the slight sales tax increase and at least temporarily the use of the $194,000 of fund balance. So I understand kind of how it came together, and I think that's good. For property taxpayers, I would like to note a couple of other points. I note them not because we don't have an appreciation for the boost that our economy gets and our activities get because of our visitors, and we appreciate the value of our diverse income sources. This is a good opportunity to make the point we made in the past about the relative contributions of our property taxpayers. When we look at the town revenues, they include that $2.4 million of occupancy tax or TDA income and the $3.6 million of sales tax income. But much of these amounts, about $3.5 million in total, goes right back out the door to the TDA and to Watauga County. When you take that into account, the percentage of the town's spendable revenue that comes from property taxes is about 57.5% as opposed to the 45%. So I just want to give our taxpayers credit for the level of their contribution. In addition, while we usually associate sales tax income with retail spending, Mr. Fox did note at the budget workshop that it also relates to expenditures for construction materials, another way of saying that Blowing Rock's property owners are contributing to the town's expected revenues. The remaining comments I have to offer on the subject of process, the sequence of steps that led to tonight's presumed approval of the budget as presented has included only one opportunity for public input, and that's this public hearing tonight. it would be very surprising if those public comments influence the outcome of this evening. That may be fine in a year where there's no property tax increase, at least from the standpoint of the property taxpayers. Nobody really cares to say a whole lot because they might suddenly find themselves with a property tax increase. But that won't always be the case. And I would encourage council to consider revisions in the process in the future so that public comments can be offered earlier on. I do see, news articles about other jurisdictions where there's a session where public comment occurs and may or may not influence outcomes, but I think it's good for people to feel included in the process, at least to the point of being heard. And this may be a quibble, but it would help very much if the budget message could be presented sooner in the process, or the slides that are used, like tonight, could be made available without having to scroll through YouTube presentations to pull them out. I'd also love it if the spreadsheets that we get could do the math for us, comparing one year to the next year. Hopefully the new finance software will be able to help that happen. I'm sure it's in Excel, and I've done a lot of math. So I see these changes. It would certainly make it easier for people if they could see some of those changes more easily. Also, in sharing the comparative data on personnel expenses, it would be helpful, I think, to have opportunities for the citizens to understand that better. I don't think we should be trying to create personnel budgets. But on the other hand, when I see a difference of 70% or whatever was up there between the amount that Lenore spends on personnel versus the amount that we spend on personnel, I mean, the first question I have is, why in the heck is that? Is it because they're spending that much more? Are there people getting paid that much more? Or is it some variation in how our budgets are constructed? Maybe they have some other enterprise funds. Maybe the tourism money affects that. When I look at it, it looks weird to me. So that's something else I'd encourage you to do, is maybe have some kind of, I don't know, not a complaint session, but just an opportunity for people to have a better understanding of what the apples and apples are, or apples and oranges are. We're the only ones with the Blowing Rock Academy. So we have that cost and that benefit that they don't have. I know at the workshop, it was said some people provide a 401k match only, we have a contribution. There's just a lot in there that makes me think that we could all get more on board with things that might happen in the future if we understood them better. Thanks for your attention, and thanks for a balanced budget. Thanks for public safety and service levels and the infrastructure improvements we've all been enjoying.
Thank you, Janie. Anybody else like to speak on the proposed budget? Yes.
Thank you, Town Council, Shane.
Address?
I'm 490 Goforth Road. My name is Jenny Miller. I live in Blowing Rock. And I just want to say, after listening to the comment before, that I want to thank you all for doing such a great job. This is indicative of anyone that wanted to come here tonight and talk about the budget and, say explicitly their concerns or whatever they wanted to say, their opinions, they could be here. I thought tonight would be packed going out the doors but I think that we read so much with your newsletter, Shane, and with the town council is so present with everything that you get out to the community. I think a lot of us just know pretty much what's going on. Maybe that's not why we're here tonight, but ample times you have been able to do this in the past. I remember, Shane, at American Legion Hall, you would present the budget and we would still have only 30 or 40 people after you put that out to the community month after month after month. So I just think it's because you all do such a great job. I'm thrilled about the property taxes. When people talk about how property taxes are so high, I said, you know, you really don't pay that much for property taxes in Blowing Rock. But, and then they say, well, it's this and it's this and it's this. And I said, well, you could always move to Sparta, you know, or you could always move down the mountain. And, but there's a reason for 47 cents on the dollar, what we're paying. We get a whole lot of bang for our buck. So I just want to thank you, Town Council, and thank you, Shane, and thank you, Nathan, and thank you, Kevin, and all the other town officials that are here tonight. Thank you for all you do. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. We have anyone else that would like to speak? Council, any other questions for Shane or?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
So moved.
Okay, the public hearing is closed. Council, what are your thoughts?
Make a motion, we accept the budget as proposed,
I'm sorry, Doug, you make a motion to accept the budget as presented.
as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Kat?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
Your budget is approved, Shane. Thank you for all your hard work. No, wait, your budget is approved. Thank you for your hard work.
Well, technically, it was our budget, now it's your budget. Yeah, so now we have to,
Should we rethink this?
it becomes
Thank you.
from managers recommended to council.
Thank you so much for your hard work and all the staff's hard work. It says a lot. It says a lot for our community. It does say a lot that it's in detail. And thank you so much. All right. Wow. Still light out.
Still light.
Yeah. Let's see, official. Let's see here. I'll go ahead and mention, Shane will probably go into detail. June 15th, paving will begin, or milling on Main Street. It will be done at night. David, Shane, let you go into more detail. I don't want to steal your glory. June 24th, summer retreat, he'll go more in detail. Parade is July 5th, downtown, 10 a.m. We're hoping for good weather and good attendance. At the July 8th council meeting, we will have the North Carolina Department of Cultural and Natural Resources here to discuss historic preservation. What citizens can do to preserve historic properties, the benefits of doing that, what can prevent something from being torn down, just all the different options. So if you have questions that you would like presented, please send those to one of the council members, or myself, or Shane Fox, or Kevin Rothrock. And we'll compile those questions and give them to the presenters when they're here on the 8th, so that, or before they get here on the 8th, so they can prepare information accordingly. Okay?
They can send their questions to us and we'll forward those.
Yes,
questions.
that's correct. Yeah. Once again, thank you for all the budget work. Once again, I guess this makes my 8th budget. And when I came on board, we had I think we were short 12 employees. And a lot of work needed to be done in town, and my hat's off to council and town managers for moving us forward. So thank you so much. Kat?
Now, I just want to thank Shane, and Tasha, all the department heads who've worked so hard in putting together a very stable and balanced budget. Thanks.
I echo those sentiments. I do want to offer my apologies for not being at the workshop. It's unavoidable. But I do want to thank everybody. I got so many well wishes about my mom, so that was really sweet. I appreciate all of those messages of hope, so thank you.
Listen.
Just again, thank you to the staff and everything that they've been able to accomplish again this year. tonight's the Strawberry Moon, everybody's
Strawberry moon.
look for it.
Couple things, Doug and I are meeting with the DOT next week to talk about 321 and the AHO to county waste facility, about accidents, and we hope that the chief engineer, there'll be several of them who are going to be here, will be able to give us some insights as to what has been going on and hope to create dialogue moving forward. We'll obviously come back and brief you all when we get all of that. Secondly, the Economic Development Commission meeting on the 19th in Boone. We have Scott Elliott, who's the governor's representative on all things flood. That will be an interesting conversation. Also, I echo what you all have said about Shane, Tasha, and all the people that work hard on the budget. And finally, Shane, thank you for the Code of Ethics discussion.
Joy. Mr. Fox.
One more time here. We'll go on record saying I told Mr. Chapman 8:15, so I'm not sure if I want to bet or not, but I've got 4 minutes to get up here and present the updates. Main Street paving is the big news. So I guess the benefit of us, or the benefit of the Parkway not doing deferred maintenance, is that the contractor's coming here sooner. That sooner is Monday, with milling operations to take, and I always say this, weather permitting, give or take a week for the milling operations. The paving, a week or two. Again, a lot of this depends on the weather, rains and storms, etc. This work is to be completed at night, Sunday through Thursday. They will start setting up in the road around 7 p.m. They'll start working around 8 p.m.-ish. They'll be back out of the road before 7 a.m. So this is night work on Main Street, end to end, from north to south, Globe to Wallingford, and then 221 out to Green Street. They will not work July 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th. So no work going on the week of the 4th. There were signs put out today on Main Street. We've already got a couple calls that said, it says July 31st. That is for the entire project. There is ditch line work. There is culvert work. There's a lot of things. The main milling and paving should take a few weeks. Again, weather permitting. So again, this was much sooner than we had thought. We originally had them scheduled for the spring. We had a hurricane. Then we weren't sure they were coming at all. Then they said they were coming potentially late summer, early fall. We said, oh, don't come in October. They're coming next week to get that started. Green and Maple paving is next week as well. Again, we had a week worth of rain that put them behind. That's separate from the contractor doing the work on Main Street. However, theoretically, within the next month-ish, we will have Main Street, Maple Street, Green Street, everything will be repaved and restriped and under new asphalt, which will be great. And then fingers crossed, no water leaks, so we don't go out there and tear anything up. Memorial Park, you see a picture behind me of the new playground features. That's a climbing wall, and we're gonna call it a spinny thing because everybody loves a spinny thing. New pour in place, etc. That has been installed. The pour in place was done this weekend. The volleyball court is being worked on currently. All of that section will be opened back up at some point next week. So just in time for the summer, new playground and volleyball court will be open within the next week. And then the fence will get moved back this direction towards the tennis courts and that direction. So good news is our main play areas will start to be back open here within the next week. Summer retreat is on the 24th. That's in this room from 1 to 5. We do have a list of items so far. I will send that out to you all. We will send a public notice out. We will also send out a copy of the agenda, just like we do for this meeting, for what we're going to be discussing that day. Code of Ethics, cemetery, number of different things coming up. But that's a 1 to 5 meeting in this room. Be glad to answer any questions on anything you have or any questions.
Got it, Shane.
8:50.
Thank you again.
All right.
Thank you for everything. All right, council, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.